When World War II ended, there was a new enemy to democracy, communism. The USA and the USSR were at each other's throats on what the better belief system would be for the world, capitalism or communism.
After the Korean War, the spread of communism was on everyone's mind, causing more fear to spread across the U.S. about the threat of the USSR and nukes. One huge figure that pushed for the fight back against communism was Senator Joseph McCarthy. He started the belief system of doing whatever it took to stop communism from spreading, no matter what.
During the start of containment and McCarthyism, JFK was elected as president, causing him to be one of the first presidents to have to deal with the conflict in Vietnam. After the start of his presidency, JFK didn't get extremely involved in the war, citing that it was Vietnam's war, not the United States.
Presidency, however, he dealt with nuclear conflicts like the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a conflict between the U.S. and USSR where the USSR was producing missiles in Cuba, causing tensions to escalate. Because of the high tensions, Kennedy and Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev decided to meet and negotiate on the crisis, successfully ending the dispute and stopping any potential at a nuclear war. The high moral would eventually end up being cut short when JFK was assassinated by Lee Harvey Oswald, cutting his presidency short and causing LBJ to take on the role of president.
At the start of his presidency, LBJ took immediate action on the Vietnam War, with Congress approving of sending troops into Vietnam through the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. Many people were outraged at the push of troops into Vietnam because many people believed that it was wrong for the U.S. to get involved in the war. Can you please let me send troops into Vietnam? I made up this really nice pill called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. I think it would fit real good with our resolution, Congress, please. Thank you.
I agree. During the war, soldiers went through tremendous struggles with abuse from drill instructors and grueling conditions, constant mental strain, and the preparation that they were going to risk dying in the war once they got shipped out.
Where's your war face? Where's your war face? Ah! Ah!
You don't gotta work. Once being sent off to war, soldiers would have to deal with constant stress of attacks from the Viet Cong soldiers, suicide bombers, napalm attacks, surprise attacks, guerrilla warfare, and even worse. Because of what they would go through during the war, soldiers would end up suffering from PTSD from being in constant battle because of the trauma that many of those soldiers experienced. They would usually end up ending their lives, sadly.
I just got sent out to Vietnam. I really don't know where to go and I don't want to get killed.
Vietnam.
There were constant battles like the Tet Offensive, a huge launch of attacks from the Viet Cong Army on South Korean and American military bases during the Tet New Year, severely escalating the war due to it being a complete ceasefire during the time and having multiple surprise attacks, severely weakening forces between the southern Vietnamese and American
March 16, 1968, unarmed South Vietnamese citizens were massacred in the village of Son Mai in Quang Nhi province of South Vietnam. People back in the United States were outraged by the war crime, resulting in protests against the war all over the country.
The Vietnam War was a huge period of time for the U.S. Many young people, especially those in high school and college, were upset about the war, and they spoke out about their outrage through music and protests. Artists from the 60s and 70s like Bob Dylan, The Doors, Bruce Springsteen, and the Rolling Stones, and others all wrote songs that were in protest of the war.
Stop the war. We don't want it anymore. We're sick of fighting. Bring the troops home. Just bring them home.
All over the country, protests were breaking out all over from people who believed the war was an extremely wrong choice. Groups like Hippies and Doves were the main people who didn't support the war because of the violence from the war.
The political environment of the United States, heated debates were taking place between figures like LBJ and senators like Frank Church and John Cooper. LBJ supported the escalation of the war and constant shipment of troops, while senators like John Cooper and Frank Church, who highly opposed the policies and tensions that LBJ was causing from his constant push for escalation of the Vietnam War.
LBJ's term ended, Richard Nixon was elected as president. Nixon held a very different idea from LBJ, settling to end the war as soon as possible because of the issues that were spoiling all over the country due to the war. His term ended, Richard Nixon was elected as president. Nixon held a very different idea from LBJ, settling to end the war as soon as possible because of the issues that were spoiling all over the country due to the war.
To implement Vietnamization, which focused heavily on training more and more southern Vietnamese armies so that the U.S. could withdraw more and more troops. However, he also implemented bombing campaigns to take place all across Cambodia and Vietnam. Nixon's term ended very abruptly because of the Watergate scandal. the break-in at the Democratic National Committee HQ at the Watergate Hotel to get info on the next election. After the scandal came about, many people all over the country felt extreme distrust with Nixon, causing him to resign from office.
In 1973, the U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War ended. After the Paris Peace Accords were signed, ending the involvement in the war, the Vietnam War officially ended on April 30th, 1975, after Viet Cong tanks rolled through the presidential palace in Saigon, causing the entire country to fall to conflict.
The U.S. ended up losing the Vietnam War because of the ineffective military measures that were taken and the growing opposition of the war, causing many people to ask, why are we doing this?
Nowadays, we are still very affected from the Vietnam War through acts like the PAC Act, which gave veterans better access to benefits like the VA, and adapting the law of all volunteer military, which completely disposed of the draft system. Because of the war, Vietnamese people experienced tons of racial injustice just from all the ideas that were spread through the Vietnam War.
The United States lost the Vietnam War, and that was 60 or so odd years ago. It's still very important to think about what exactly happened and how it still affects us today.
Just a side note, if you ever want to try authentic Vietnamese food, where should they go? They should go to,
You should go to Spicy Chili Pho.
at, what's the address?
I don't know, I can't read it.
It's at 1722 South Chambers Road, Aurora, Colorado, 817. Definitely go there. Very, very, very friendly.
80017.
8017. Good Vietnamese food. Spicy chili pho.